Hello and welcome to Creating Canon with your hosts AJ Hamilton and Nicholas C. Pappas. Woo!
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear you say my
2
name
weeks in a row.
without
Oh my
2 weeks in a
goodness.
row.
Well, again, it's number 2 of a very special episode.
Yeah, I am so stoked. I'm so excited that we get to the finale. We get to Act 2 of the Spider-Man film. If you have not listened to the first part, you really should listen to the first part before jumping into the second part.
If you don't.
More than slightly. And I guess on that note, without further ado, let's get into it.
Let's whip into it.
It's
Thwip, that's what
Thwip?
That's how it's written. Thwip.
We now join the script in progress. Exterior, paint warehouse, night. A SWAT team surrounds the dilapidated structure. Searchlights, snipers, flashes of gunfire from the middle story of a tall warehouse. A TV newswoman broadcasts a live report from behind the barricade. Other reporters babble in the background.
He's holding the police at bay with a wall of automatic weapons fire.
More shots ring out in the background.
But because of the flammable chemicals, the SWAT team is helpless for now.
High above her, Spider-Man clings to a wall facing the warehouse. He musters his courage.
Just do it, you chicken.
He shoots a long web up to the warehouse roof, loops the strand around his hand, and swings. Above the stunned police, reporters try to catch him on film as he arcs across the street to the warehouse and crashes through a window and scatters a pyramid of stacked paint cans, splattering paint everywhere in the dimly lit warehouse loft. The gunman fires after the elusive shadow. Strobe-like streaks of light illuminate Spider-Man. A vat of turpentine explodes into flame. On the other side of the cavernous room, Spider-Man kicks over a huge bucket of red paint, which floods across the floor like a blood river. The gunman, only half visible in the dim, smoky light, whirls and fires again at Spider-Man.
I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
Bullets spray in every direction, exploding paint cans in a crazed rainbow of fluid and flames.
Where are you?
Up here.
The gunman looks up, aims at the ceiling. Spider-Man hangs from the rafters. Just as his trigger finger clenches, a jet of webbing shoots into the barrel of the gun, which backfires in his hands. Spider-Man leaps down. His boot connects with the man's jaw. Spider-Man pulls off his mask, stands above the unconscious gunman.
Get up! I want you to look into my eyes when I...
Spider-Man hoists the gunman off the floor in fury and prepares to smash the man's skull. He hesitates and sees the face of the gunman in the dancing firelight.
Oh, no. No!
Flashback. Spider-Man on the phone. The thief that rushes towards him, and we freeze frame on his face. The thief and the gunman are the same man. Police rush into the paint warehouse, guns drawn. Silence, but for the crackle of flames and bursting of paint cans. Through the smoke, they see something large hanging from the rafters like a yo-yo. It's the gunman, moaning. He's completely enveloped in webbing. Exterior courthouse roof, night. Dawn starts to break over Manhattan. Camera cranes down to pick up Spider-Man on the peak of a marble facade, looking very small indeed. Closer, he tears off the mask. Peter's eyes are red-rimmed, past tears. He pulls off his glove. One hand still bleeds from the crushed bottle. He pulls the check from his waistband, stares at it, then slowly rips it into small pieces. He stands watching the confetti-like bits flutter downward, then violently rips the tunic from his chest. He pauses. We see the web shooter still taped to his arms. Peter throws the mask, gloves, and tunic down toward the street. As the blue and red costume drifts in the wind past an engraved motto. With great power comes great responsibility.
Excelsior.
Exterior, cemetery, day, a chilly morning, an urban cemetery in Queens. In a black suit, Peter tosses a flower into an open grave. Several mourners, including some neighbors, bid him goodbye. He looks numb.
May would have liked the eulogy. How is she?
Okay. The doctors say no shocks for a while. She needs rest.
You could use some too, honey.
Peter nods. She hugs him. A hefty, blue-collared friend of Ben's, looking awkward in a suit and tie, shakes Peter's hand.
Ain't nothing you could have done, Peter. Enough said.
No nod to this one. Peter watches the man walk off, then looks at the grave. Exterior, Electrodyne factory, day. A loading bay to the vast warehouse. The salesman checks off a list as workers load electrical equipment into the back of a rented truck. A huge section of aluminum pipe sits nearby. Ock watches. The salesman waves the workers away.
Okay, boys, we need a forklift for that pipe. Where do you want the bill sent?
Ock pulls a wad of crisp bills from his trench coat, hands it to the astonished man.
I'll, get you a receipt.
He starts off into the warehouse, counting the cash, then stops, hearing a heavy clank behind him. He turns to see the enormous section of pipes sitting on the truck bed. Ock climbs into the cab and drives away. Interior, Student Union, day. Peter, still in a suit and looking burnt out, sits with Harry over coffee. Liz and Adele, carrying breakfast trays, approach from the cashier in the background.
Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And you let me go on about Razumov working me too hard? I feel like a complete idiot.
You're not half the idiot I am, Harry.
Adele and Liz set the trays on the adjoining table. Flash enters in the background.
Well, look who's dressing for success.
At least this ensemble doesn't glow in the dark.
Hey, let him be.
Why? He knows how to defend himself. Maybe too well.
Flash sits by Liz, waving a copy of the Bugle. Peter's photo of Spider-Man on page 1 with a barely perceptible rip down the middle. The headline says, TV Clown Escapes Crime Scene, and subhead, Spider-Man Sought for Questioning.
Hey, guys, check it out. I saw this dude on the tube last night. He is incredibly cool.
I saw him too. He was silly and obnoxious.
And Flash isn't?
Be nice.
Yeah, take pity on the feeble-minded.
No, listen. They're trying to say that he was in cahoots with this killer.
Flash, drop it.
But they got it all wrong. Any fool can figure it out. Spider-Man nailed this guy.
Flash guzzles Liz's glass of milk, to her annoyance.
I mean, Spidey is one guy I'd like to meet.
Toads of a feather.
Adele notices the photo credit.
Peter, you took this picture?
Let me see.
Liz takes the paper. Flash reads it with her. Peter gets ready to leave.
Parker, you amaze me. You know this guy? Who is he? Anyway, where did he come from? Is he a cop? A martial arts freak?
He's a mistake.
Peter walks away.
Mistake? Hey, guy, get back here!
What a lump.
What's with him?
Oh, nothing much.
Harry rises with his and Peter's coffee cups.
His aunt had a coronary, his uncle was murdered by that guy Spider-Man caught. No, nothing much at all.
Harry exits, letting the news sink in. Interior, Roz's office, day. Roz leans on his desk by the map. Murata tinkers with the antique sextant.
You were the last one to see Thorkel in Octavius's hospital room?
So, you've found Thorkel?
Some of them. Charbroiled bones, teeth. We ruled out suicide. Any bad blood between him and Ock?
Roz gently takes the sextant away from him.
Octavius wasn't the murderer type.
But you said he was off a little. After the accident? When those mechanical arms...
Waldo's.
Right. We have reason to believe he also robbed an armored truck and killed 2 men with the Waldos.
Roz reacts to this, then leans over the map. Murata joins him. Peter enters and stands politely by the door. Neither man notices him.
Lieutenant, I've triangulated recent bizarre events. The Bronx, Jersey, Brooklyn, all rippling out from here. The ESU Science Center. Octavius's experiment seems to have opened a hole in space-time, drastically changing the interrelation between molecular binding, electromagnetism, and gravity.
Yeah, that's fascinating, but I'm just a fat, dumb cop looking for a psycho killer, right?
There's an infinitely greater danger if... Listen, the only thing Octavius cares about is repeating his experiment. To do that, he needs a radioactive catalyst, SL-270.
He hands the cop a list. Murata nods.
Toxic dump.
And he'll need a cyclotron. He can't use ours. He's already destroyed it.
Roz hands him a second list.
Guard every nuclear accelerator on the eastern seaboard. New Haven, Long Island, 2 in Cambridge.
Sure about all this?
I know him.
Murata recognizes Peter. Roz looks at him as well. They stare at him.
Hi. Professor, I'm here about another extension. My uncle died.
Roz looks at him dubiously, then sees he's telling the truth. Murata slips the list into his coat.
Of course.
It's a lot of ground to cover. We'll try.
Murata looks to Peter, solemnly amused.
Funny coincidence, huh?
No such thing as coincidence. God does not play dice with the universe.
Einstein, right? Yeah. We'll see you.
Murata walks out.
Peter, my condolences.
Peter nods, turns to leave. Roz picks up the day's bugle.
This photo you took of Spider-Man?
Luck. Right place at the right time.
Really? I'd like to speak with him.
I don't think I'll be running into him.
You never know. Get some sleep.
I'll try. Thanks.
Roz turns back to his map. Peter watches him for a moment, then exits. Interior, Peter's apartment, day. On the phone, tie loosened, we hear Reese's angry squeals through the receiver.
No, thanks, but... No, Mr. Reese. I'm finished with the act. Okay, I'm a fool. Look, that's it. No more Spider-Man. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
He hangs up and flops face down on the mattress, burying his face in the pillow. The phone rings. He glares at it, but answers.
What?
Interior, Jameson's office, day. All smiles. Jameson sits at his desk, a copy of today's bugle in one hand.
Parker, I love you. We scooped every paper in the country on this Spider-Man jerk. I want more, Parker. I want more.
A beat. Jameson glares.
What? Ah, don't be an ass. Get pictures of him robbing a bank or kicking a dog. Anything. This guy's the best bad guy since Mangala or Son of Sam or J.R. Ewing. Huh? Get out of here. Nobody wants a hero.
Interior, Pete's apartment. Peter looks at the squeaking receiver, hangs up, and unplugs the phone. Interior, Jameson's office, day. Still on the phone. Betty, excited, enters and hands Jameson a sales report.
Get this. We sold out. I'll double the print run. I'll slot you in on page 1 for the next month, buddy.
He finally notices the deadline.
Parker? What a newsman. On the job already.
Interior, Peter's apartment, day. Peter stands with the open costume box in his hands, looking at the second red and blue outfit. He decides something, then stuffs it in the Leiber's novelties bag, along with the web shooters and the obnoxious New Wave jacket. Exterior, East Village, street, day. Bag in hand, Peter leaves his building and crosses the street.
Peter, wait a minute.
He pauses. Liz runs up to him, a little breathless.
I was just
Sorry
coming
if
by
I
to apologize.
Each pauses to let the other speak, then...
No,
I've
I
been
didn't
acting
know
like
about...
Both look at each other, then giggle. The tension eases. They walk together.
What's in the bag? Garbage?
Sort of. I'm returning that outfit you hated so much. Maybe I can get my money back.
Oh, don't do it on my account.
No, it wasn't only you. It just wasn't my style. Hey, look. Let's go to lunch. Someplace nice for a change.
This from a man who winces at the cost of a pretzel?
That was then. I'm better since the lobotomy.
He points to an imaginary scar on his forehead. They laugh and walk off. Exterior, electrical substation, day. A Waldo thrusts into frame, penetrating a mass of circuits, wires, and switches. Sparks and ozone fill the air. All 4 of Ock's arms work at once, cutting and resplicing high-tension wires in the cage transformer. Ock's eyes frenetically scan a series of voltmeters. One registers escalating levels, while others jump, then drop. A linesman sees Ock from the rear, the Waldo stretching from his torso.
Hey!
Ock ignores him. The linesman pulls a heavy wrench from his tool belt and brandishes it, approaching warily. Without turning around, Ock extends a Waldo backwards, grabs the wrench, and crushes it in two. The lineman runs off. Near the fence, the panicked linesman slams into 2 guards, male and female.
My wrench! It arms!
The guards draw their gun as he clambers over the fence. Another voltmeter needle swings as Ock throws a switch.
Freeze! Hands up!
Ock turns, the Waldo's waving like Medusa's hair. The guard steps forward, her bullet ricochets off a telescoping metal arm. It grabs the gun and the woman's hand, squeezing. A second Waldo whips around the male guard's neck, shakes him like a terrier with a rat, then hurls him into a wall of wires. Electricity jolts his body and knocks him out. Ock's attention returns to his work. Released, the woman falls to her knees in pain, crawls to her fallen comrade. Her hand extends for his revolver, but her body is dragged away from the gun. Waldo has her ankle. She screams. Another Waldo slaps her head and knocks her out. A voltmeter reads 0. Ock frowns, then spies a locked metal cabinet marked Third Rail Circuit, New York Transit Authority. Ock considers this. Interior, chic French restaurant day. An imperious waiter sets dessert before Peter and Liz, out of place in the refined environment.
But at least Aunt May's okay now. I really have to stop by the hospital this afternoon.
You mind if I come too?
I think I'd like that.
He ignores his dessert, stares out the window.
They keep saying there's nothing I could have done. That's a lie. I could have done something. If only I'd paid attention to my feelings.
You're not trained for that. None of us are. I mean, sometimes Okay, let's say you had gone back. What then? Are you bulletproof?
Well, no.
So? The next day I'd read Peter Parker murdered, and I'd feel...
You'd feel what?
Listen, you think you're responsible for everything that happens. Don't flagellate yourself, and don't flatter yourself either. You're not the center of the universe. You're just Peter.
Am I? I'm not so sure. I used to be sure of a lot of things, different things from week to week, but now I'm not sure of anything anymore.
I know what you mean.
He looks a little queasy. The spider sense again. Liz's voice and the restaurant sound drop out. Track into tight close-up on Peter. We hear the awk throb and panic cries of people in a subway car. Abruptly, we're back to reality, and Liz is being oddly inarticulate.
Maybe unsure is good. Maybe you feel more that way. Like, I was sure you and I were just friends, and that's it. But last weekend when I was with Flash, all I could think of was...
She sees Peter is paying absolutely no attention. She bangs her spoon against her glass.
Hello? Earth to Peter, are you listening?
Uh-huh. Excuse me, I gotta go.
He grabs the Leiber's bag and hurries out. The waiter sets the check down before the boiling Liz.
I think I really do hate him.
Exterior, Wall Street, day. Walk and don't walk signs blink simultaneously. Stoplights flash with no pattern, then explode in series down the street. Pedestrian and vehicle traffic snarls, honking horns, frazzled nerves. The throb begins. Low, muffled, under the street cacophony. At an intersection, two cars coming from opposite directions suddenly swerve towards each other. The drivers spin their steering wheels to avoid the crash, but magnetic attraction makes them slide through the intersection, smash together sideways and stick. The drivers, inches apart, look at each other, baffled. A taxi swerves around the wreck and down this less crowded street. The throb swells. We see through the windshield, the pulse spreads through the asphalt ahead, rippling mirage-like. The taxi's wheels sink into the liquefying street, now the consistency of quicksand. The driver crawls out his window and leaps to the sidewalk as the gooey street swallows the cab. Spider-Man swings to the edge of an overlooking building, watches the cab sink, an earthquake-like rumble from below. From beneath the street, a subway train bursts up, arcs into the air with a roar. The three-car train sails through the air past Spider-Man. A huge hole opens like an iris in the facade of a nearby modern office building. The train thrusts into the shimmering hole, which clamps shut around it. The throb and pulse cease. The street below re-solidifies, trapping half-buried cars. Screams, honks, sirens. Interior office building day. Businessmen and secretaries peek from under desks and around doorways. 1.5 subway cars sit incongruously in their office. The passengers clamber out windows, pry doors open. Interior middle car day. Solid structural glass bisects the middle car. Commuters in the outside half of the car press their faces against the glass, pound for help. Exterior office building day. The other 1.5 cars of the subway protrude from the sheer face of the building, the last car dangling vertically by its hitch 10 floors above the street. Interior, last car, day. Hanging vertical. A pile of 6 commuters on the bottom end. Ad-libbed panic cries.
Get us out of here! Somebody help us!
A wide-eyed teenager pulls open the rear door. A bag of fruit spills down and splatters on the pavement. A crowd gathers, points up, more ad-lib cries.
Oh my god!
City's crazy nuts!
Spider-Man shoots a long stream of webbing and swings to the glass front building. Spider-Man's head pops into the open window of the subway car.
Hello.
The passengers stare as he climbs in and backs them away from the glass wall.
Okay, folks, stand back.
He kicks it. Nothing. Frustrated, he grabs a metal railing. 2 passengers help him uproot it. Spider-Man uses the pole as a battering ram, punching a hole in the window. Office workers aid the passengers. Spider-Man runs towards the last car. Interior of the last car. The second and third car are at right angles to each other. Spidey opens the door at the top of the car, scampers down the grab handles to the people below. The half-dozen passengers cling to seats.
Cavalry's here. Get the wagons in a circle.
He hefts a rotund woman over his shoulder.
Have you tried Weight Watchers?
She whacks him with her purse as he scampers straight up the floor. Exterior of the last car, the doors between cars. Spider-Man pushes the woman up, helping hands from the middle car lift her to safety. Down on the street, the crowd parts as a hook and ladder truck rumbles up over the sidewalk. Back to the last car, Spider-Man pushes another passenger to safety. The thick iron link between the cars creak, bending under the strain. Down on the warped street, the fire ladder rests against the building below and to one side of the swaying car. Back up in the car, the subway car lurches perilously. Spider-Man returns to the 2 remaining people.
Let's take the scenic route.
Spider-Man lowers a web-wrapped girl down through the door and swings her like a pendulum. After a close miss, a fireman atop the ladder grabs the girl. The iron link bends, nearly open. Spider-Man fastens a thread of webbing to the outside of the car.
First floor, ladies' lingerie, sporting goods.
He grabs the terrified man around the waist and lets out the line of webbing in short bursts to lower himself and the man to the sidewalk. Down on the warped street, firemen rush to help. A white Mercedes limo pulls up. The chauffeur opens the door for the Politico, who beams for the news cameras.
Where's the hero? I want to thank him personally for his fine...
An ominous grating of iron from above.
Get back! It's coming down!
He scatters the crowd. The Politico looks up at the subway. The chauffeur runs.
Oh no! My limo! My Mercedes!
He scrambles to his car. Spidey intercepts him, hefts him like a sack of potatoes, and runs to cover as the subway car rips away from its link and falls, flattening the limo. Pieces scatter in every direction. Cameras click as Spider-Man sets the whimpering Politico down.
My Mercedes!
This is all you need.
Spider-Man hands him the Mercedes hood ornament.
Hey, you some kind of superhero?
Actually, I'm just trying to do as little harm as possible.
Can I get your autograph? I mean, for my kid, he's a fan.
Fans? I have fans?
He starts to sign Pete, but then crosses out and signs Spidey with a flourish.
He was here before it happened. I bet he caused the whole thing.
What?
He assaulted me. I want him arrested.
Councilman, this guy just saved a whole bunch of lives.
Okay, Zorro, assume the position.
The cop pushes Spider-Man's spread eagle against a car.
Will you give the guy a break?
Take off his mask. He destroyed my car. That's city property.
The cop, fireman, and Politico argue, ignoring Spider-Man, who shakes his head and scampers up the wall. The crowd applauds.
Yeah! Way to go, Spider-Man!
Spider-Man waves and disappears over a roof. Interior Jameson's office, day. Jameson leans back in his chair by an open window, reading a competitor's paper. Like Kilroy, Spider-Man peeks over the sill, then leans in to tap Jameson's shoulder.
Ah!
He spins out of his chair and backs away horrified.
Don't hurt me, you thing, you! I've got scummy lawyers like you wouldn't believe.
Spider-Man crawls the rest of the way in and sits on a wall, chin in hand.
Relax, Jameson. This is business. I know you want photos of me, so I'll give your boy Parker an exclusive on one condition.
I don't submit to blackmail. The First Amendment protects my freedom to tell the news as I imagine it. And
would you cool it already?
Police! Help! Police!
Web goo shoots out and covers Jameson's mouth. Jameson inches to the door.
Thank you. Now, repeat after me. Spider-Man is a good guy, on the side of right and niceness and cute baby animals and all that. Fine.
Spider-Man webs the door locked as Jameson grabs the knob. Betty and others gather at the glass partition amused.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man could use a little good PR at the moment.
He heads for the window. Jameson points frantically at his glued-up mouth.
Oh, that? It'll come unstuck in a half hour or so. Your mouth needs the rest. Bye.
Spider-Man waves at the laughing bugle employees and drops out. Interior May's hospital room, day. A 4-person ward. May's corner already reflects her personality. Bright flowers, the photo cube of Peter, a patchwork comforter. She sits up in bed, alert but tired. Liz sits beside her on the bed. An old crone sits across the room in another bed. She watches muted TV news featuring Spidey footage.
He left. I couldn't believe it. He just left. It's as if he's somewhere else. I'm only getting a piece of him.
When Peter was little, he loved to hide. In closets, under the sink. He needed a secret place. But when I'd look for him, he'd laugh. He wanted to be found.
I don't think he wants me to find him.
Oh, sure he does, Toots. May, give me that changer thingy.
May flings the remote across to the crone's bed.
Television is for idiots. Read a book.
Read this.
The crone gives May a fungu bent elbow. Liz draws the curtain between the beds.
I wish Ben had said that to me. Just once. I never let up. Always needling him, telling him what to do.
Liz takes May's hand.
Maybe I was hiding. For years, I never told Ben the one important thing.
He knew.
Some things you should say anyway.
Even if they're not clever.
Even if you've heard them a million times in every stupid pop song ever written.
What if you get hurt?
What if the world ends tomorrow?
They look at each other. We hear the TV.
Still baffled as to the cause of the subway disaster. The alleged Spider-Man is still wanted for questioning. In other news, police have a suspect in yesterday's armored truck robbery and double murder.
Exterior New York streets, day. We're with Spider-Man, swinging from skyscraper to skyscraper, reeling like a roller coaster through the concrete canyons. From street level, looking up as Spider-Man swings like Tarzan, pedestrians react.
Spider-Man!
There he goes!
A crowded street. Ock, trench-coated as usual, drives his rented truck. It splutters to a halt in the middle of traffic. Horns, impatient yells.
What is this?
Inside the rental truck, the gas gauge reads empty. Ock climbs out, leaving the truck blocking the street. Spider-Man's point of view, the only thing in focus is Doc Ock as he walks through traffic, oblivious to the uproar he's caused. Down on street level, a Waldo tears off the driver's door of a commuter's Cadillac. Ock slides in.
Out.
Sure thing.
He scrambles out the passenger door. Spider-Man swoops down and across the street, still above Ock. On the New York streets, day, the caddy shoots around traffic through red lights while Spidey swings right behind it, losing ground. To avoid congestion, Ock drives on the sidewalk, scattering panicked pedestrians. Spider-Man clings to a wall, shaking his head. He leaps down and lands on the roof of a fast taxi paralleling Ock. The cabbie ignores the clunk. Ock rounds a corner. Spider-Man leaps from the taxi to the rear seat of a motorcycle ridden by a biker chick in leathers and helmets.
Could you do me a favor and,
Follow that car? Love to, but you gotta wear a helmet. It's the law!
He takes out the spare helmet from her sissy bar and fastens it on. They trail Ock's car through downtown, drawing stairs. Exterior George Washington Bridge, day. Ock's caddy speeds up an on-ramp. The biker chick close behind pulls over.
I don't do Jersey. Bad vibes.
I'm hip. Thanks for the lift.
He hands her the helmet and she screeches off. Spider-Man spies an approaching semi, runs and leaps clinging to the side of the trailer. The semi moves over the bridge. Ock's caddy is several cars ahead, halfway over the bridge. Spider-Man crawls up to the top of the trailer, a cloudy sky, an impending storm. Off the Jersey Turnpike, day, standing atop the trailer with hands on hips, Spider-Man sees Ock veer onto an exit. As the truck passes the exit, Spidey swings on an overhead exit sign toward the overpass. Spider-Man lands on the overpass. Ock's car recedes out of sight. There are no buildings to swing from, no vehicles to cling to. It starts to rain. Spider-Man sighs and starts walking. On a muddy street, sunset, drizzle, a sleazy area of wrecking yards and dumps, a police car with 2 gaping holes in the windshield, and 2 patrolmen dead inside. Camera rises over a concrete wall with rusting signs that read, Toxic Waste Dump Number 49, and Hazard Radioactive and Poisonous Materials, with a radioactivity symbol and skull and crossbones. Over the barbed wire atop the wall, we see within the toxic waste dump a nightmarish industrial landscape. Giant vats overbrimming with rancid chemicals, stacked rusting drums, puddles of viscous fluid on the gravel bedding. In an open concrete bunker, Ock uses his human hands to pull open a vault-like drawer. Inside are dozens of sealed canisters, all bearing danger radioactivity warnings. He checks through them, discarding unwanted canisters haphazardly. One near the back catches his eye. SL-270 is scrawled on the stained label. He plucks it out, examines it, nodding.
Open that now and you'll spoil Christmas.
Ock whirls around. Spider-Man drops from atop a chemical vat, clucking his tongue, and sauntering towards him.
Surprise!
Ock pulls open his overcoat. All four Waldos telescope toward the astonished Spider-Man. They encircle his body, squeezing like pythons.
Surprise.
Spider-Man gulps for air, struggling desperately against the steel arms. He wriggles a hand free, shoots webbing up, and pulls himself from Ock's clutches. Ock grabs the small canister, but a stream of webbing shoots down and jerks the canister up to Spider-Man on the roof of the bunker. He springs down to the ground on the run. Ock's Waldos lift an oil drum and hurl it over his head. The drum bursts ahead of Spidey, spraying a greasy cloud of noxious gas and sizzling liquid. Spider-Man gags as Ock rumbles towards him.
You are an insect!
Doc, you know better than that. Insects are a completely different order from spiders.
Spider-Man ducks as a Waldo shoots out, puncturing a hole in the metal vat, which explodes. He rolls under a flaming stream of napalm-like fluid. A Waldo grabs the SL-270 container. A third arm backhands Spider-Man, knocking him through the air into a concrete wall. Shaken, Spider-Man gets to his feet, stumbles after Ock.
Well, had enough?
Ock uses the Waldos to pull himself over the retaining wall. Spider-Man leaps onto Ock's back, throws him in a headlock. Ock sputters, strikes backwards with his real fists to no avail.
Aren't we both too intellectual for this?
A deep, ugly roar echoes from Ock's chest. Two Waldos whip backwards, grab Spider-Man, and fling him violently over the top of the wall and onto the roof of the patrol car. Spider-Man bounces off and splashes into a puddle. Painfully, he rolls over, struggling to his hands and knees. Out of nowhere, a Waldo claw clutches at his throat, squeezing. Spider-Man presses the web shooter triggers. They spurt blobs of goop, then air, out of webbing. Ock thrusts Spider-Man against the wall, rears back with another arm, and aims a deadly blow. Spider-Man jerks his head. The metal fist misses by inches, punching a crater in the concrete. Ock laughs maniacally. He prepares for the final blow.
Octavius!
Ock turns and sees Roz getting out of his vintage Porsche.
Please!
The wild violence drains from Ock's face, replaced for a moment by sanity. He looks at Roz, then at the metal arms, then again at Roz. Pitifully. With an anguished cry, Ock loosens the grip on the choking Spider-Man. Ock rushes to the Cadillac, drives off. Sirens wail in the distance as Roz helps Spider-Man to his feet.
I sent for the police. We can explain.
Explain that some jerk in a mask and costume fought a mad scientist with 4 tentacles?
Right. Let's go.
Roz's car. Spider-Man opens the window for air as Roz drives the bridge to Manhattan.
You're sure you're all right?
Yeah, just a lungful of New Jersey. Luckily you showed up when you did.
Logic. Lot 49 is the closest stockpile of SL-270. I do feel foolish talking with a man dressed like a...
Imagine how I feel.
Excuse me if I'm impertinent, but how did you become whatever it is you are?
The usual. Heredity and environment. What's the deal with Doc Ock?
He'll try to finish his experiment.
And blow up the universe just trying to prove he's right? A bit egotistical, isn't it?
A messianic complex is nothing new to Octavius. In his universe, there is only one mind. His own. Must be very lonely.
Forgive me if I don't feel too sympathetic right now.
They drive south to Lower Manhattan on West End Avenue in the rain.
I listened to him talk of eternal truth and thought of the Bhagavad Gita, the Indian holy book. I am become Shiva, death, the destroyer of worlds. Octavius was...
bonkers.
Looney Tunes. And yet...
Just drop me off here.
Exterior waterfront district. The car pulls over near the Erie wharves under the elevated West Side Drive. Spider-Man gets out and leans in the window. The rain has stopped.
Do you live around here?
No, but I've got this secret identity to worry about. I'll swing the rest of the way.
I see. Well, Octavius won't get much further. They'll catch him and put him away. Sad. He might very well have the truth.
Phooey on that.
Roz drives off. Spider-Man raises his arms to shoot a web. It makes a noise. Still out of webbing. He groans disgustedly.
Ugh.
He heads down a rain-slicked street. Exterior New York streets, night. Spider-Man trudges across town toward home. Quick images of nighttime New York. Warehouses, tenements, Chinatown, the Bowery. Spider-Man walks by a group of gang kids who laugh and point.
Nice outfit.
He stops a robbery by tirelessly flipping the mugger into a dumpster. He avoids a police car by leaping and clinging to the side of a building. Inside a window, we see a couple kissing passionately. He looks away and drops to the street. Exterior Peter's apartment building, night. Spider-Man stands on the landing, slaps his thighs for his keys. Nothing.
I have got to get pockets.
He hops up on the wall and climbs upward. Near the roof, he hears the rumble of an MG engine and voices below. Harry, Liz, Adele, and Flash tumble out of the tiny car and head to the front door.
Ah, we forgot the beer.
I'm not sure this is a great idea.
Maybe he wants to be alone.
Come on, he needs friends now.
Groaning,
Ugh.
Spider-Man crawls onto the roof and opens the skylight. Interior Peter's hallway, night. Flash brings up the rear on the stairs. Everyone's puffing from the climb.
I mean, is this worth it? I mean, he's so damn dull, and I bet he doesn't even have any beery treats.
Peter answers Liz's knock. In his bathrobe, his face bruised. He looks a mess.
Peter! You poor baby, what happened?
Interior Peter's apartment, night. Flash claps Peter on the back, pushes past to the kitchen. Peter winces when Liz touches his bruise. She shakes her head and goes to the bathroom's medicine cabinet.
What did happen to you?
Nothing. Look,
You get mugged or something?
listen, I do appreciate your concern, but
I got you a present.
He pulls a colorful can from his jacket pocket. Peter unscrews the lid and spring snakes fly out. Peter looks at Harry tiredly.
Thought it might cheer you up.
Flash closes the fridge and returns from the kitchen.
Let's go somewhere and get you blotto.
Hey, I'm sorry about your uncle.
Guess Uncle Ben got his rice converted.
Oh, God.
Flash yucks it up. Liz enters from the bathroom with cotton swabs and a bottle of rubbing alcohol.
Flash, get lost.
Come on, laughter is the best medicine.
Adele pushes him out the door. Liz looks at Harry, who nods and follows the others into the hallway. Liz eases Peter down onto the mattress. Flash tries to look back inside. Adele closes the door. Liz dabs Peter's bruises, his head on the pillow, her face close to his. He's totally exhausted.
sorry about being a jerk this afternoon.
Just shut up and close your eyes. This'll hurt.
Eyes shut, he hardly has the energy to wince as she dabs a cut on his temple.
May's much better. She'll be out soon.
Oh God, I totally forgot to...
Shh.
She dabs at him again.
I always thought she was a strong person. She is, but not for the reasons I thought.
Strong.
Her cleverness, that hard edge, maybe they're the weakest part of her. The strong part is what's underneath. The part she was protecting. There's no reason to protect it. I think she's just finding that out now.
Peter's features relax. Liz puts down the bottle of alcohol.
Peter?
I'm here.
He's out. Liz sees this and smiles.
So am I.
She kisses him tenderly on the lips, then curls beside him on the bed. Exterior, high-tech cyclotron, night. Barbed wire barricades, searchlights, and National Guard troops surround a sprawling, futuristic accelerator lab. An officer leans out of a patrol car marked Suffolk County Police.
Is there an NYPD lieutenant here? It's Professor Rizzo or Rossa or...
With an all-night beard, Murata comes to the car. A styrofoam cup of coffee in hand grabs the mic.
Yeah, Roz.
Any sign of our friend?
Nope. Maybe he skipped to Rio. Fed's got troops surrounding every cyclotron in the continent. Are you absolutely positive that one at ESU is kaput?
In Roz's office, Roz, fully dressed, sits on his desk.
You didn't see it, Lieutenant. You'd need half a dozen men, precise equipment. They'd have to rebuild the transformer from scratch. There were...
His voice trails off. He realizes Ock's plan. Murata's voice frantically squeaks through the phone.
Razumov, what is it?
Precise equipment, such as Waldo's.
The lights flicker and the phone rings madly, then explodes. Back at the high-tech cyclotron, a high-pitched whine on the radio.
Raz, what's going on?
Exterior New York skyline night. Lighted buildings flash dark in clusters. Interior Peter's apartment night. Peter sleeps, Liz fully dressed, asleep beside him. Track in on Peter. We hear the Ock throb growing louder and faster. A cacophony of screams, explosions. The end of the world. Sounds stop. Peter sits bolt upright in bed. He extricates himself, goes to the window. The lights in his apartment go out, as do those throughout the neighborhood.
Dr. Octopus, I presume?
In the dim light, we see quick cuts of Peter strapping on his web shooters, loading fresh cartridges, pulling on his gloves, pulling down the Spider-Man mask. Liz half opens her eyes sleepily.
Peter?
Spider-Man leaps up to the skylight and slips out. Onto the New York streets. Spider-Man's form swings against the night sky through the blacked-out city. A baseball bat smashes a jewelry store window. 3 looters fill their arms with sparkling rings and necklaces. The leader turns and catches a red boot in the chin that knocks him end over end. Spider-Man's fists quickly dispatch the other 2. Across the street, 3 more looters run out of a pawn shop carrying an assortment of radios, instruments, cameras, etc.
There's no time.
Spider-Man takes a running jump, bounces on a car roof like a trampoline, and tackles 2 of the looters. On the ground, he shoots a jet of webbing at the 3rd looter's back, then pulls hard and yanks him down. People of all colors and social strata scramble down fire escapes and into the streets to chase off the looters. Spider-Man clambers up a wall and swings off. Interior experimental chamber, night. Makeshift repairs, patches of metal plug plating, jerry-rigged wiring, even repairs made with gaffer's tape. All is still strangely warped. The experiment's already going. Brilliant light from the focusing cone concentrates on the gram weight, which shivers. Ock stands in the middle of it all. Waldo's working feverishly at an improvised control board. He's lost in his mad rapture. In the control room, still showing the effects of the original implosion, the glass wall melted, dials and controls warped and useless. Roz leans against the twisted glass, shielding his eyes from the glare within the chamber.
My God, Otto, you have to hear me. The world we have known will collapse. Everything we have devoted our lives to, all patterns, all harmonies, will be destroyed.
Truth alone exists. Truth must be released.
You have no right. This is cosmic suicide.
In desperation, Roz climbs through the melted glass into the chamber, grabbing a Waldo and trying to pull it from a huge rheostat. Ock, clutching the gram weight, pays no attention to Roz's futile struggle. The arm, moving to another part of the room, swats Roz aside and knocks him to the floor. Close up on the gram weight, the tiny cylinder rises very slowly from the scale. The throb rises in pitch. Suddenly, the weight falls upwards, accelerating towards the ceiling as if dropped. Spider-Man's hand catches the gram weight. He's clinging to the ceiling.
Hey, Doc, you dropped something.
Spider-Man leaps onto Octavius and kicks him in the chest, knocking him backwards into a pile of acetylene tanks and torches. Roz gets to his feet.
Spider-Man, be careful. He's quite mad.
I'm not so happy myself.
Without warning, a Waldo springs out and wallops Spider-Man in the head. The blow sends him flying, knocking him up against the focusing cone. He falls onto the floor in a heap, unconscious. The blue-white beam focuses on the floor. Roz runs for the cone and tries to right it, but a Waldo grabs him by the collar and flings him away. Ock smiles and cranks up the power. The pulse ripples through the tiles and sends them falling to the ceiling. The cement floor beneath begins to glow. On the New York City streets, sirens in the distance. Running, shadowy figures. The beam of a flashlight in Liz's hand cuts through the darkness. She, Harry, and Adele hurry through the streets.
This is a great way to get killed.
New York is a big place, Liz.
He was hurt. He might be delirious or something. We have to find... Listen!
She hears the faint throb, runs up the street to locate it. The Science Center. Light spills from the torn open front door, the only illumination in the area. The pulse spreads through the sidewalk, the cement paving ripples and throbs. Liz runs toward the building. Adele grabs her.
Liz, I don't think...
Liz breaks away from Adele and dashes up the steps. Adele hurries after her. A crevice opens as the building steps crumble. Harry pulls Adele away. Science Center, main floor. The building creaks. Hunks of ceiling fall downward. Liz runs upstairs to a corridor with many doors.
Peter? Peter, where are you?
Crack opens in the corridor's floor beneath Liz. She leaps out of the way, twists open the knob of a door marked Biology Lab. Gets in just as a hole opens in the floor where she's been standing. The Science Center. Harry and Adele back away as the structure shakes and rumbles, the brick walls slowly sliding upwards, the concrete foundation rising into view, the sidewalk buckles, trees uproot and fall over. Back to the experimental chamber. The room vibrates. Roz drags the unconscious Spider-Man towards the control room. The pulse envelops the entire floor. The light casts eerie shadows upwards on Ock's face. Back to the Science Center. The building pulls free from the ground. Adele, Harry, and others in the area take cover as the water main burst, spewing fountains. In the biology lab, Liz steadies herself as chairs and tables slide from one end of the room to the other. A cage full of white mice tumbles to the floor and snaps open. The mice scurry in panic. Back at the Science Center, heavy electrical cables stretch upward to the rising building, then snap in showers of sparks. The Science Center rises further, now airborne. The electrical cables point upwards, shooting arcs of power directly at the building that angle up as the Science Center hovers above the surrounding buildings like a brick spaceship. In the biology lab, Liz clutches a windowsill, looking out and down. From her point of view, the Science Center rises. The ESU neighborhood recedes hundreds of feet below. Dawn begins to show in the distance, silhouetting Manhattan. In the substations, in rapid succession, power stations around the city explode and shoot rivers of electricity toward the building ascending in the distance. The New York City skyline, twisting rope-like beams crack through the sky, ripping holes through skyscrapers in their path. The bolts of power shoot at the concrete foundation of the experimental chamber and rip gaping holes through the walls and floors, directly to the whirling cyclotron transformer, which pulses and throbs. Circling arcs of power dance crazily around Ock. He watches in ecstasy, his Waldos twitch and curl in pleasure. In the control room, the twisted banks of electrons burst. Roz shakes Spider-Man.
Get up! The second phase!
An energy cyclone erupts over New York City and whirls beneath the rising structure, stacking objects from the streets. Tin cans, bus benches, trees, newsstands, parked cars all swirl in the inverted funnel growing beneath the building. In the experimental chamber, Spider-Man leaps around the energy stream to catch Ock's attention. Intensely absorbed in the experiment's progress, he reacts slowly. His Waldos probe towards Spider-Man, who dances and whirls away from the grip. Roz makes his way toward Ock's control board. Spider-Man hurls an acetylene tank at Ock, who deflects it. An energy bolt hits it, and the tank explodes, tearing a door-sized hole in the floor beneath Spider-Man. Roz, at the controls, nods to Spider-Man.
Come and get me, Squid Breath.
You annoy me.
Ock lunges for him, but Spider-Man jumps down through the hole in the floor. Ock falls after him. Outside of the Science Center, looking up from the bottom of the building, arcs of energy crackle through the cloud cover and shoot into the basement. Falling, Ock thrusts a steel tentacle through the concrete as an anchor and vaults arm over arm after Spider-Man. Spider-Man scrambles around the edge of the foundation and onto the front facade. A Waldo clamps around his ankle and tugs violently. Spider-Man resists, pulls against it, but the second Waldo clutches his arm and peels him completely off the wall. The two Waldos shake and whip him around like a rag doll. From Spider-Man's point of view, he sees the sun and the horizon swirl crazily, Manhattan far below through a gap in the clouds. Ock smiles. The Waldos release Spider-Man. He falls, but immediately shoots a jet of webbing onto a metal tentacle. The sudden weight causes Ock to waver precariously. Spider-Man shoots another web and swings up to the front of the facade. Back in the experimental chamber, Roz, in a sweat, throws the rheostat, an ear-splitting screech. Outside the Science Center, several of the energy streams dissipate. The building halts its descent, then lurches. Its facade tilts towards the horizontal. Ock's arms thrust into a brick and hold on. Spider-Man clings flat against a glass doorway. The horizon reels drunkenly around them. Spider-Man hangs on by his fingertips. Waldo fists slam into his hands, shattering the glass. In the biology lab, Liz hurtles across the slanted room. Furniture and laboratory equipment crash towards her as she crawls up the floor toward a wall of windows. A case of formaldehyde-filled bottles smashes inches from her head, spilling grisly preserved specimens. She suppresses a scream, keeping her wits about her. Outside the Science Center, the building hovers and pitches unstably in midair. Spidey rips loose a drain pipe to defend himself against Ock's arms. A bizarre sword duel ensues. A 10-foot pipe versus 4 metal tentacles. The building pitches violently in the opposite direction. In the biology lab, everything that's not tied down falls across the room and smashes past Liz through the windows, which now face down on New York, a mile below. Outside the Science Center, the building spins. Debris spills out the window. Ock lands a hard blow to Spider-Man's jaw. Stunned, Spidey hugs the wall. Ock claws his way across the brick surface to finish him off. Behind Ock, Liz tumbles through an open window, clutching at Venetian blinds. She releases a pent-up scream of terror. Dangling a mile above ground,
Liz!
Spider-Man seizes the offensive, swings at Ock with the drain pipe. The building reels, vertical walls nearly upright. Spidey heaves the drain pipe like a javelin, hitting Ock in the belly. The pipe hurtles downwards. Double jets of webbing shoot out to cover Ock's livid face. Spider-Man swings around Ock towards Liz, shoots webbing to secure her to the face of the building. Spider-Man dodges and ducks the flailing Waldos, weaving a web to bind them to the wall. More and more web fluid. The net draws tighter.
You could use a nice, long rest.
At last, near enough to Ock's body, Spidey clips him with a quick blow. He's out. Spider-Man scrambles to Liz and pulls her inside. Into the experimental chamber. Roz runs from one bank of controls to another. Spider-Man and Liz enter from the control room.
What is she doing here?
This building is flying. I'm in a flying building.
Professor, you ever fly one of these things before?
Sure. In the war. Pull those cables.
Spider-Man runs across to the transformer, now glowing less brightly. He pulls a thick electrical cable. The cyclotron groans. The pulse diminishes further. Spider-Man grabs another cable.
One at a time! We'll drop like a bomb!
Spider-Man lets go as if it were red hot. Outside the Science Center, some energy streams sputter into nothingness. The building gently descends towards the clouds below. In the experimental chamber, Liz watches as Spider-Man and Roz work together.
I'm in a goddamn flying building.
The pulse in the floor unspreads towards the focusing cone. Liz's earrings flutter. They fly off her ears, sailing to the curved wall of the cyclotron. Other metal objects, pliers, a welder torch, etc., join them there.
Magnetism. Phase 1. We're returning to normal.
Ock's Waldos erupt through the floor. Seething, he pulls himself into the room, loose strands of webbing hanging from his face and arms.
Oh, come on!
All 4 Waldos surge out at Spider-Man. He barely leaps away. A Waldo lashes after him and pulls loose another electric cable. The room pitches. Liz and Roz fall to the floor. She pulls Roz away from the glow. Spider-Man leaps to the ceiling above the cyclotron. Ock strikes out. The magnetism sucks an arm against the accelerator tube and holds it fast. The pulse shrinks, further to an area below the focusing cone. Ock's remaining arms strike madly at Spider-Man, Roz, everything. Waldo crosses the beam of power from the focusing cone. Concentric rings of energy shoot down the length of the arm. The Waldos burst apart, scattering wire and metal. Ock yowls in pain. A 2-foot remnant of a Waldo flops limply at his torso. Spider-Man leaps to the ceiling above the focusing cone.
Up here, Dakiaki.
No! No! Not there!
Ock's remaining 2 Waldo arms thrust madly at Spider-Man. He springs away. The Waldos smash the cone. Unearthly sounds. The fiber's blue-white beam envelops Doc Ock's entire body. A dark, completely alien slit opens in space where the focusing cone had been. The widening gap draws Ock into its weird beyond. He reaches toward it with his human hands. Liz and Spider-Man struggle to resist the gap's pull. Roz watches in horror as Ock's body warps, twists inside itself. He howls. It's agony, pleasure, enlightenment, and death. The gap implodes Doc Ock's body, and it disappears, closing and sucking the last of the energy and pulse into it. Eerie silence, except for the growing whistle of air.
He found his truth.
We're falling.
Okay, I blew it. Let's move.
Outside the Science Center, the energy has completely disappeared. The building plummets into the clouds. Interior Science Center hallway. Spider-Man and Roz help Liz towards the staircase. The wind whistles louder as gravity accelerates the plunge. The New York skyline. We see the Science Center fall out of the clouds towards Central Park. On the staircase, pitching and rolling, Spider-Man, Roz, and Liz move weightlessly up to the emergency exit. Outside of the Science Center, the door swings open in the hurried wind. Fire extinguishers and other objects are sucked past the trio. They leap away from the building.
Hold on tight, kids.
Central Park accelerates towards them as they plunge to Earth. The Science Center disintegrates on impact with Central Park Lake. We see the sky. Falling with Liz hanging onto his neck, Roz under one arm, Spider-Man shoots webbing downward onto Cleopatra's Needle, to the top of the obelisk, and swings gracefully down in a spiral around the monument. He touches ground and sets Roz and Liz on their feet. They look around them at Central Park. A hailstorm of debris, papers, books, bottles, bricks. The lake's surface churns and calms. At Cleopatra's Needle, the trio stands for a moment, stunned. Liz's knees buckle as she faints. Spider-Man catches her.
I can handle it.
He hefts her into his arms and walks off into the gathering crowd. Interior, lecture hall, corridor. Norb and Chip lean against the wall, hanging out. They read a copy of the Times. The bold headline, "Scientists explain tornado/earthquake/electrical storm." Flash swaggers up, whacks their Times with a copy of the Bugle.
Yeah, use that to wrap fish. I got the real story.
He shows them the tacky Bugle headline, "Spider-Man saves universe." Chip and Norb break up laughing. Students pour out of a classroom behind them.
Hey, this is the truth. Look, Doc Ock and this experimental thing and the Science Center crash into Central Park and...
He spots Peter and Harry and holds up the Bugle.
Parker, Osborn, true. Am I right?
Oh, of course.
I was there.
See?
Or was it all a dream?
Peter and Harry laugh. Outside of the lecture hall, they walk out and past the boarded-off pit that was the Science Center.
Oh, I need your notes from the classes I missed.
Well, I've missed a lot of classes myself.
Oh, well, hang in there, amigo.
He crosses away. Roz catches up to Peter from the lecture hall.
Peter, I'm so very proud of you. I must apologize for doubting that you could do it.
Peter eyes him, wondering what he knows. Roz eyes him back.
The paper, my boy. A solid B+.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
If you really apply yourself, you'll get an A next time.
Roz smiles wisely. Peter watches him walk out.
Next time.
The idea of doing it all again makes Peter whistle lowly. He sees someone across the street. Exterior, Washington Square Park. Smiling, Peter runs up to Liz.
Hello, Liz.
Hello. So very boring. Peter Parker, how do you feel about me this morning?
I like you. A lot.
Well, I like you too. I like your aunt. I like your shoelaces. I like...
He holds a fingertip to her lips.
Hold it. Can we stop being clever just for a moment?
Why?
He kisses her. She looks at him bittersweetly.
This may be the end of a beautiful friendship, you know.
Nah.
She kisses him back. They walk off into the park holding hands, and we fade to black. End of movie.
Oh, what a heart-pounding ending to that episode.
Ooh, yeah, I wasn't sure if Spider-Man would
scared.
survive, but as things often do, they worked out.
Peter Parker is pretty lucky. Pretty lucky guy.
Peter Parker is pretty powerful for you poopy pants.
Thank you all so much for listening to that weird alliteration thing.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. Again, AJ, I don't know if we've really nailed how excited I am that this exists in this world, about how thankful I am to this incredibly talented cast who gave up like 5 hours on a Saturday to read this.
We are thankful forever. It's so wonderful.
And that doesn't even include their prep time, because these are all really incredible professional actors who I'm sure most of you know them or have seen them either in TV, film, or commercials.
Or stage.
Yeah. Please look them up. Give them love. I am so thankful, and I think we're both indebted to these 8 amazing people. I'm not including us in those 8 amazing people.
As you shouldn't.
No. We're the outliers.
Held up by all of them.
Yeah, they what is it? The rising tide lifts all boats, right?
That's right. Yep.
They were the rising tide that lifted our boats. So I just, again, I'm so thankful to them. And thankful for you, the audience, for listening to this.
There would be no reason to do this other than for all of you out there in radio land, podcast land. We appreciate every single listener out there, and we hope you come back. Next week, we've actually got a discussion of sorts between Nick and I on what we thought of this script, how this would have
fit into the canon universe.
Fit into the canon of canon, yes. And also, we've got a little bit of a conversation with the cast.
Yeah.
That we recorded right after we finished this reading.
Yeah. So please come back. It's the last part of what has turned into our Spider-Man 4-parter.
Yes.
Again.
Our Spider-Man April.
Our Spider-Man April. I don't know. I tried to do like a J. Jonah Jameson, but I'm not you're the voice actor. It's not me.
That's all right.
Yeah, but I am, again, thankful to everybody. And this is one of those things where if you're a Spider-Man fan, please, we don't usually ask to say, like, pass around the episode, but, like, pass around the episode to everyone that you know.
There was a lot of hard work, not just by us, but a lot of hard work put into this.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to hear this. So
yeah,
thank you.
And I like to think that Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus would not sue us too hard, and then also just, be down for what we did.
Be cool.
Be cool with it.
Be cool.
Yeah. So, thank you, AJ. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Cass.
Thank you, Nick. And as we must say at the end of every episode, good night and good
cannon.
Thwip.
Roll credits. This episode of Creating Canon was directed by AJ Hamilton and Nick Pappas. Produced by AJ Hamilton and Nick Pappas. Voice engineered by AJ Hamilton. And featuring the acting talents of Ben Bode as Roz, Uncle Ben, Letterman, and others.
Carrie Lee Cartwright as Adele, Lucy, and others.
Jessica Goldapple as Aunt May, Leiber, and others.
Seth Gunawardena as Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
A.J. Hamilton as J. Jonah Jameson, Harry, and Old Man, and others.
Jason Lovett as Doc Ock, Flash Thompson, and others.
Armando McClain as Detective Murata, Steve, Reese, and others.
Nicholas C. Pappas as A Lot of Stage Directions and Hulk Hogan.
Adrian Whitney Papp as Liz, Betty, and others.
And Thomas Rounds as Thorkel, Politico, and others. Thank you all.
Hey listeners, Nick here. AJ doesn't know that I've somehow snuck on and added this to what is being released, but I want to give a special extra shout out and thanks to AJ's incredible work on this episode. It sounds beautiful. The sound effects are wonderful. The cast is wonderful. And all of that only happens because AJ spent, I don't know, seemingly months behind the computer, putting it together, cutting it together, and creating something really magical. And this episode really doesn't exist without all of AJ's hard work. And I just, for one, would like to take a special moment and say, AJ, thank you. Honestly, you created something magical and something that I'm so proud of. And I just really appreciate you and your work. Back to me being mean to him. That dork.
And finally, I'd like to thank my friend, tormentor, and co-host Nick, who makes this podcast a joy to work on. His insight and love of movies is the fuel that this podcast runs on. Well, that and caffeine. Creating Canon is an adventure every week, and we both hope that you enjoy listening to it as much as we enjoy making it. And now, the outtakes.
There's no post-credit scene.
Do you want to guffaw there?
A long stream of glue impregnated.
All right, so should we forge ahead?
Go for it.
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Glue impregnated, yeah.
Yeah, okay, just making sure.
You got it.
Woof. I'm gonna pause for dogs.
Well, they're upset.
Can you hear this?
They're so upset about May and Ben.
Yeah.
I actually taught them that for the hunting scene in the library.
But they're just
they
way
missed
late
their
on
cue.
their...
Yeah, they missed their cue.
Is it my fault for screaming?
No.
It is. It's because
It's the cat.
Because you were
it's their
so
fault for existing.
You were so sad, and they feel your sadness.
It was a bit of a howl, so...
Yeah.
Can you hear this helicopter? It's actually vibrating the table.
Hey, but that's appropriate for this scene,
that's
isn't
true.
it?
Yeah,
It is.
That's great. That's great.
ADR, you guys. Foley! Foley!
Get those free Foley sounds. That's genius.
I don't know that they did that in 85. Did they circle?
Sure, why not?
My bad. All right.
Apoplexy.
Thank you.
Just go.
Yeah, Ben, can you do it?
Yeah, what am I muttering?
I don't know how to make a sound for a shrugging eyebrow. Okay.
I don't know. That sounded like a good shrugging eyebrow to me. So
He swings out over... I'm sure the children of the 80s all knew exactly who Errol Flynn was.
I mean, you know, I love that Spider-Man's making that reference, but man,
Classic
that's
Flynn right
dated,
there.
bro.
Jameson? I think I'm ready for a beer. Babe! We'll just go with it. Wait. I'm having a moment. It's Jameson. It's Jameson?
Jameson?
Jesus Christ.
Words, man.
Yeah, it just was one of those moments. Okay. Spider-Man shoots a long stream of wedding. An imperious... Oh boy, words are so hard right now. Shoplifters flash with... God damn it. Stoplights flash. The Spider-Man... Sorry, just let me have one quick second.
That's that jerk Spider-Man.
Yeah, Jason, we weren't supposed to do that the whole time. It was just for the picture.
Ain't nothing you could have done, Peter.
Can you give me an Excelsior, AJ, at the end of that?
That absolutely.
That
That's
felt
the line.
like the Stanley cameo. I'm just telling you. Like,
Right?
That's what it feels like.